The knock on his QB is that he's weapons dependent, and maybe that's why he didn't even crack the top 10. Here's Purdy's numbers last year. If you thought Dak's numbers were good, well, see?
I mean, those are some numbers, baby. I'm just saying.
No, Brew, you tried to squeeze. Oh, you want
he already got to go on Purdy.
No, I got bored.
He already got to go on Purdy.
plenty in
He's
the
about
chamber.
to filibuster, so just let me go first here.
Purdy is not top
So
10.
here's the thing, and I'm curious where this comes out, because everybody knows that I agree with the scouts and GMs on this. Obviously, Purdy's not top 10. And by the way, some of the guys behind him, because he came in.
Where did he come in?
11th. He came in 11th. But Jalen Hurts, who I'm not the biggest guy on in the world, I think is clearly better than him. Jordan Love, I think, is better than him. And by the way, the sample size isn't that demonstrably different between the two. Jordan Love's played 1 year. Purdy's played a year and a half. So I think that 11 is a little rich. Brew has positioned himself, Wilds, as the Purdy guy.
Yeah, that's true.
And now, and I bet he has a bunch of graphics explaining all of it.
They're easy. He makes graphics easy.
That's great. And now I am very curious to hear if in the entirety of this conversation, Bruce says at any point he thinks Purdy deserves to be firmly in the top 10.
Well, I said he was 10th.
10th. Okay,
I said I would put him ahead of Dak.
So you have
because
him
I'm
10th.
looking at it objectively.
So you don't have a big problem because he's 11th and he's 10th.
No,
So you have him 10th.
I'm not mad at 11.
Okay,
11 is fine.
exactly.
All right, but I'm saying, I said the last segment, I would move him ahead of Dak. I'm just being objective.
Yeah.
I'm not going off feelings. I'm not going off.
Well, then why
Dak's
is he not
bigger.
gonna be
Dak
top
looks
3?
more like a football player. You know, I'm going off the production. Period. And don't give me Jimmy G. Because, yes, they won with Jimmy G, but Jimmy G didn't lead the league in passer rating and the top 5 in MVP consideration and all of that stuff. He didn't put up nearly the numbers. He didn't pass. That's not first.
No.
Yeah. He didn't pass Joe Montana and Steve Young and Jeff Garcia in
now
yards
he says
in
who
the
had the
season.
record. Okay.
Garcia was nice that year. But anyway, here we go.
Get to the graphics.
I'm not surprised because a lot of the NFL scouts and stuff, look, they get enamored with the big arm.
They like their athletes to be big and strong.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
really.
crazy.
No, but real talk. Yeah. They get enamored with the wow factor.
Where they were
the
drafted,
arm, the speed, the athleticism, where they were.
I got to point this out real fast. I'm going to let the clip play. But that's literally what I said yesterday before this clip was even recorded, that I said that they do that. And so I just got to point that out.
Drafted. I get that. I do think his I like the intangibles because I know that Tom Brady and Joe Montana did not wow you with their physical gifts, but they had it up here. All right, they were smart.
So he's like Brady and Montana.
He broke Montana's yardage record. Well, I'm just saying that.
Montana
I'm not
had
saying
that
he's
record?
Joe Montana and Tom Brady.
Okay, yeah.
But what I'm saying is he's got the intangibles, the intelligence that make for a good quarterback, and not everybody looks at those things. But here's something, passer rating. Passer rating is fair. It takes out all the players around you. In his 21 starts for Purdy, 14 times he's had a passer rating of 100 or more. Oh, that's the most in the league in the last 21 games. Yeah. Any quarterback's last 21 games, Purdy has had a higher passer rating in terms of 100 or more than any player in the league. And you know, Nick, passer rating takes out Christian McCaffrey. Passer rating takes out, Deebo Samuel and all that.
No, it doesn't.
So you.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And I just want to also pause real fast to be like, this chart and I'm going to make the argument for Purdy, but this chart doesn't prove it or do that, because if anything, this chart goes against him, because does anyone think that Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, and Russell Wilson are top 10 quarterbacks, or that Dak Prescott is better than Joe Burrow, or that Russell Wilson is better than Joe Burrow? Like, it's just like that this graphic does not do that at all.
You can't just go with the other player. It's about the quality of your throws.
No, passer rating. No, you're thinking, no. The passer rating is.
Well, QBR does some of that, but I'm saying passer rating is a legitimate.
I do like the.
All right, so that's what I'm saying.
I don't agree.
It's not just based on the supporting cast. Oh, by the way, his offensive line was 21st in the league. So Dak's was 8th.
Right. So can I just ask a question? Since you're not a guy that is worried about the size and strength. And you're not,
I'm not saying
and
it's
you're
irrelevant.
not
I'm
a
just
guy
saying
that is
I look at intangibles.
that cares about draft status and that, okay? Who do you think is better? Brock Purdy or CJ Stroud?
I want to see more from Stroud. I want to see more from both, but I would go with Stroud.
You go with Stroud, right.
And I'm not dismissing athleticism, arm talent.
I understand.
I'm just saying I value intangibles
Right, but
more than some.
then why
and
are
CJ
you,
has intangibles.
So why
too.
are you not willing to say he's a top 5 quarterback? Because all your stats
Because I want
say
to see
he
a little
is.
more.
So
because I believe,
but
and
you're not,
hold on, I've been consistent in this. If he were, like, let's say he was the number 1 pick in the draft.
Right.
He was a college All-American. Everybody would be like, he's the guy.
Yes.
Like, they wouldn't be waiting. But when you are Mr. Relevant, when you were good at Iowa State, but, you didn't wow the nation, we're going to wait a little longer before we give you your full props.
But
so that's all I'm saying.
All right. So, but I don't this is where I stand. I dismiss the numbers as a product of the system. You say that's unfair.
Right.
You then present all these numbers that scream he is definitively one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league, and you say he's 10th. So it sounds
Right,
like
because it's a balance.
Right.
It's a balance of I need to see a little more because of his unimpressive pedigree and what he's done on the field. So I'm balancing it.
Okay. All right.
I buy that.
This is okay. They didn't really say a lot with regards to this whole thing. That's the end of this section of it. But so I just do want to point out this will never not be funny to me because, right, we obviously know Nick Wright is such a high on Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. And the truth is that if all these lists are accurate and Nick does agree with them, that means Patrick Mahomes has never beat a top 10 quarterback in the Super Bowl. And I just think that's hilarious to me. He's never beaten a top 10 quarterback. And in fact, all the quarterbacks that he has beaten in the Super Bowls are all, according to Nick, either like essentially bottom 15 quarterbacks. And the one actual top 10 quarterback that he played, he got destroyed in. So I just find that really funny. Before you say, well, he's played these other guys like, in the playoffs, that doesn't really exactly count because it's not the actual literal Super Bowl. And not to mention, we have someone like Tom Brady who, in his route to his roles, had to beat like literal all-time great quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and whatnot, right? Like that's a significantly bigger deal than beating Tua Tagovailoa. Like, it's just, there's just different levels to this. So this will never not be funny to me because Nick, the evidence that Nick wants to use to build his case, if we're going to use that evidence, well, then you have to admit these aspects of it as well. So that's just always funny to me. Whether Purdy is or isn't a top 10 quarterback, it's just, I wish we had I don't think they showed the list at all. Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on. Or were those stats? Hold on. Let me see. No. Okay. It's just being a quarterback, especially when you're on a great team, is wildly difficult for people to evaluate when you aren't like a physical freak, right? Like that's what it comes down to. The things that Brock Purdy does really well, right? His ability to see the field, his decision making, his reads, his minimization of mistakes, his execution of the actual offense. We say system quarterbacks, but like the quarterback has to execute that system very well. You can't just plug and play anyone, because if it was the case, then every single backup quarterback, they would just say, hey, jump into the system and you're going to win. And we know that's not the case. So people say system quarterback like it just means like anyone can jump in there. And that's fundamentally incorrect because, again, backup quarterbacks would be able to consistently ball out then. And that's not the case. We know that's not the case. And because of those are the things that Brock Purdy does well, it doesn't jump off the screen. And I think that's where Brew is trying to argue a little bit about those, the physicality and the big, strong athletes, because it would be easier if you saw, say, like a Josh Allen or Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson, that if he had that exact same team as Purdy, you would just say, like, you wouldn't be able to say as easily that it's the team, the system, the whatever, as it is with Purdy, because they are such physical, athletic monsters that no one in their right mind could say that they're not contributing to that offense. And that is why so many people are so quick to say Purdy doesn't contribute as much to this offense that it is, Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey, and all the names, the Avengers or whatever. And I get why a casual fan, and again, I'm not saying casual in the negative way, just, the average Joe fan doesn't see that, right? I understand why someone like a Brock Purdy can go under the radar. I really, really do. Because again, if you're just looking at it from a felt experience, when you're watching a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, like they truly jump off the screen. I mean, it's just like you can't miss just how great and top level they are. You don't see that as much with a Brock Purdy. And so because of that, his perception gets hurt because of it. It's just a perception. It's an issue of perception. And again, a lot of 49ers fans get upset about this, and I don't think they should, because it just means that your team is so great with such great weapons and such great coaching that, like, okay, so people don't respect your quarterback as much, but like, y'all keep winning. So go ahead, have them keep talking their trash and they're going to keep winning. Like, it's a good problem to have. And it's like, because it's a weird, the reverse happens. And I just talked about this in my other video about how, like, when I praise some of the Chiefs players, like Travis Kelce, right? Tyreek Hill at the time, Andy Reid, like, people are insulted by that because they're like, how dare you say that those players are great? And it's all Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, I'm saying that your team is great, that you have one of the best coaches of all time, one of the best tight ends of all time, one of the most amazing wide receivers we've ever seen in Tyreek Hill. Like, it's just like, what are we talking about here? So the fact that Purdy gets hate, I get it if you're like individually a Purdy fan and maybe not like you're maybe a Purdy fan first over a 49ers fan. But if you're just like a general 49ers fan, like that is your team and Purdy happens to be your quarterback, like it should honestly just put a smile on your face. You should be like, that's right. We have such an amazing roster and such an amazing head coach that you guys think that any quarterback can run that offense. That's essentially what they're saying, that any quarterback can run that offense. Think how amazing that is. That's how much of a fine-tuned operation that is. That they think they can just throw anyone in there. You should say that. You should feel that a pride then. That's how awesome your team is. Rather than seeing it as a heaping insult at, say, a Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy will always struggle to prove that he is a major contributing factor because of that team, because of that coaching. And Tom Brady went through that as well. Through the beginning of his career and at the end of his career, right? Before they started considering him the true GOAT, right? Or just even in that conversation, people saw him as kind of a system quarterback. He was a good quarterback, but they didn't see him as truly as brilliant. Then, of course, he just kept winning Super Bowls, and then that was like, well, how can we not say that he's not the GOAT and the best, right? Like, all he does is win, no matter what. And then, still, though, near the end of his career, it was still like, is it Bill Belichick? People forget this because it was solved in a second because he went out and won with Tampa Bay. But it was the true back and forth near probably the last couple of years with him with the Patriots, and then as well as he was, that breakup was looming. It was just like, who is it, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady? Then even when they separated, it was like Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. Who's really responsible? And then the problem was, or the benefit for Tom Brady is that he won immediately and Bill Belichick didn't. And now pretty much like any casual fan sees Bill Belichick as kind of like overrated, dare I say. And again, I'm talking about the casual fan sees Bill Belichick as overrated. And it's like, no, Tom Brady now. I mean, people used to see it probably like either 50-50 or even 60-ish, 70 Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. And now it feels like the general consensus is that Tom Brady's 90% of those Super Bowls, 10%. Again, I'm not saying any of that's accurate. I'm just talking about the general perception. That's what this all is. This is all just general perception. So if Tom Brady had to go through that, better believe Brock Purdy's going to go through that. So it's just, and the reason why I'm not going to focus too much on this specific video about who's top 10, who's not, because I've already beat that. I already did that. I already did that with First Take. Already did that with the Herd. It's like we can only do that so much, which is why I think that they're probably also individually doing this, because they're a little late to this party as well. So they're trying to focus on individual players of who's top 10, and rather than the top 10 list as a whole. But it's a good problem to have for the 49ers and even Brock Purdy. There's like some quote. It's actually from Futurama, and it actually holds a lot of truth. I'm going to butcher the quote completely. I wish I had it synced up here, but I'm not that cool. And it's about like this like god like being in outer space that Bender the robot. This will make sense, I promise. Found out in like the deep space. And he was, in this like god-like creature, which was like just like a bunch of like glowing stars. Is like, if you're doing your job, then people will think, if you're doing your job essentially as a god, then people will think that you don't even exist. And I think that's, I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like when you're doing your job and you're kind of, you're just doing it right, then a lot of professions, a lot of personalities, a lot of situations, people will think that you don't matter that much, that you're not actually contributing as much as maybe people think. And I think because it's a good thing, and it's why we have this where it's always like you'll miss it when it's gone, right? We see that in relationships, parents, children, girlfriend, boyfriend. It's always like you'll miss it when it's gone, right? And it's not until something is taken away or something that you have something significantly worse that you realize how good you had it. And I think that's really exactly what people are experiencing with a Brock Purdy, because he's not a supermodel who's the most beautiful person you've ever seen in the world, but yet, and people we live in a world right now where you're either this absolutely gorgeous supermodel with 500 billion fans on line, or you're just nothing. You're trash. You're overrated. Like we live in this whole overrated, underrated society right now, right? Someone's either this top level or they're overrated. And I feel like that's where Purdy's falling in right now. So it's kind of interesting to see someone who's seemingly so humble, who, says all the right things, plays football the right way, not get the respect. But the truth is, when they say that he's not a top 10 quarterback, I guarantee you, the vast majority of franchises would rather have Brock Purdy as their quarterback than whatever they got going on. That's all you need to know. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Are you surprised that Brock Purdy is not a top 10 quarterback? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.